Somebody says something really nasty about you at church, and you don't even want to go back. I've been there too. Still go, but it's tough sometimes. I've been a victim of the beautiful people. Have you? Well, we're fixing to scratch the scabs off of some of those old wounds next on Body Slammed with Pastor Scott.
Thanks for joining me tonight. I want to talk to you about something that is really, really hard for me to deal with, and I'm having a hard time talking about it, just to be honest with you. It's always easier to deal with conflict. It's always easier to deal with a problem that's really weighing heavy and bearing down on your heart if you have someone put their arms around you and say, you know what, I know how it feels. I've been there. I know what you're going through. And I want to tell you that tonight. I know what it feels like to have people that you love and people that you trust turn their backs on you and just betray you and just make up stories and talk about you. I had this one guy that I worked really closely with, and I was friends with him. I knew how he talked when he wasn't in front of people, and I knew the things that he did, but I wasn't perfect either. So I mean, I don't want to sound like a goody-goody, but let me tell you, this guy began to think that I was going to be a threat to him somehow. And so he started just making stuff up. I'm talking about pulling it out of air. He said he went to the deacons about me. Now, you got to understand, I was on staff. He went to the deacons about me, and he told them that I was surely a drug addict, that he had seen my car at a dope dealer's house. Yeah. And you know what really just grinds on me about this is that my car probably was at a dope dealer's house. When it come to church, I would go visit anybody. I'd go to see anyone and welcome them in and talk to them about the Lord, and I didn't care who they were. So that may have been true, but that didn't mean I was a drug addict. So, I mean, that's just something that he did. He also, oh goodness, it makes me angry, and I start stuttering and get a lump in my throat. He also recruited one of my wife's closest friends. My wife is a very quiet person. She's a beautiful person inside and out. And he went to one of her closest, dearest friends, and she started, her purpose with my wife's friendship became absolutely, I don't believe it started out this way, but it became absolutely her purpose was to find dirt on me. She began to go to my college buddies. She began to go to friends in my past and just trying to dig up anything she could dig up on me and trying to find out something that she could use against me. But the problem is she used my wife. She used my family. And if you got a problem with me, you need to come to me. But she used them. Exploited her best friend that she could have ever had to try to get at me. And I blame myself for it because I feel like I put my family in that situation. So anyway, this is very difficult for me to deal with. To this day, I lose sleep over it. To this day, I think I carry around a lot of anger. And you may ask, well, Scott, have you forgiven them? Yeah, I really honestly have. I've forgiven them and I've given it to the Lord because I can't deal with it on my own. When I start trying to deal with it, I become angry again. I start losing sleep all over again like it happened today. It happened when I found out the most of it. In fact, I had found out a lot of it before it ever came to a head. But whenever I really began to find out the big deal of what they were doing, it was my birthday, my birthday was 3 days ago. So every time my birthday comes up, I have to hash through this again. It's awful. And I have forgiven them because I can't deal with it on my own. Because honestly, if he were to come walking in here right now, I'd probably want to punch him in the lip. If old dude come walking up, I'd have to confront him. I would have to, the man in me would take over and I would have issues. I'm being honest with you. I'm being as real with you as I know how to be. So I have to give it to the Lord. And I started looking for someone that could talk to me and deal with this. And it was hard. I couldn't find anything out there on what to do when this happens. Pastor Bob was able to help me. A friend of mine named Brian Duncan was able to help me. But other than them two, there was nothing out there that dealt with this. And that's why I'm trying to do this podcast for you, because I want you to know when you find someone that can put their arms around you and say, I know how you feel. I've been there. I've dealt with it my own self. And when you find that, that is whenever you begin to find healing. And I want to tell you, in case you're one of those, I know how you feel. But here's the best part. It's not just me. Jesus knows how you feel too. Jesus knows what you're going through. Jesus knows what it feels like because he was betrayed. He was talked about behind his back. And they finally took him out and they killed him. He was put to death by his friends. And to be able to tell you today that when I pray tonight, because dealing all this and hashing all this up again has got me in a tizzy all over again, but I can tell you with an honest, straight face that when I go to God tonight and I begin to pray, I'm praying to a God who knows how I feel. That pain, that hurt, he's been there and he knows what you've been through. So, stay with me. We're going to talk more about forgiveness and trust in the podcast to come, I promise you. We're going to get through this. We're going to make it. But all the way, we're going to give them heaven.